Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and certified informational privacy professional providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies.
Hi, I'm Justin Daniels. I am a shareholder and corporate M&A and tech transaction lawyer at the law firm Baker Donaldson, advising companies in the deployment and scaling of technology. Since data is critical to every transaction, I help clients make informed business decisions while managing data privacy and cybersecurity risk. And when needed, I lead the legal cyber data breach response brigade.
And this episode is brought to you by Ding! Red Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, e-commerce, professional services, and digital media. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there's greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more and to check out our best-selling book, Data Reimagined, Building Trust One Bite at a Time, visit redcloveradvisors.com.
So I was thinking, in light of our guests today and our content, I should be asking you, are ponytails tight?
Oh, very clever. And if you don't know what we're talking about, that would be one of the famous lines from Cody Rigsby at Peloton. And no, if you ride Peloton, we don't have Cody here today. But I did have the great pleasure of taking a ride in person with Cody, and it was so much fun. We have Jordan Smith, who is the VP of Privacy Compliance for Peloton. And Jordan is responsible for the Global Privacy Program. And before joining Peloton, Jordan advised, developed, and built compliance and global data privacy programs from the ground up for startups as well as publicly traded companies. And Jordan, we are so excited that you are here today to help us talk about building privacy programs. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Now,
do you have your ponytail tight?
I'd need enough hair, but
what's a good Dennisism?
See, to me, the best one is, I think what he says is, I make recommendations, you make that decisions. That one's pretty good.
I love that one. As you can tell, we are avid Peloton fans and have been for a long time, but we promise we won't only talk about Peloton instructors today.
That would be your gig. I'm more interested to talk to Jordan. We're going to get into some interesting.
Okay. We'll do it.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to let you go.
No, you start first. See, I did the intro, then you do the first question.
Clearly, we're out of sorts here today. Jordan, talk to us a little bit about the evolution of your career and how you got to the exercise bike.
No problem. Yeah, and I won't talk. I like and love each instructor the same. Like that.
That was a really good teacher answer. There are no favorites.
That was very Swiss. Very neutral.
So how did I, if you look on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I have a BFA from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts. And you're going to wonder, how did this guy who was an actor end up in privacy? And truthfully, it's because I was a horrible restaurant worker. People are still waiting for their food right now. And so I ended up doing a little bit of work in the news industry and then ended up at law school, right? And so from law school, I got involved with regulation and policy and really in compliance. But my first foray into privacy was when I was working at a consulting firm. This was back in, early days when, Kamala Harris was kind of putting out papers on privacy. And as a consultancy, I was doing work with some big Fortune 500 companies. And even these big companies were starting to think about all the data they had, especially telecom companies. And I started to understand that really it's about brand at that point. It was about how do we look at the different personas and the branding, and are people going to click on a privacy policy? Are they going to read it? Or those types of things. And so we started to develop, at that consultancy, a privacy kind of group. It didn't go far because I think we were ahead of our time, really. And that's when I got my SIP and everything like that. And from then, I went on to working as head of compliance for a division of IAC. And that, I was working with 5 of their companies. And at that time, GDPR came into being. I had the SIP and I was looked at like, hey, I think we need some help. And so I started to help develop that program. Later on we got a DPO and we worked together. But that's really, that was really starting in the regulations and trying to understand what's happening and where it's going, what we need to do to comply. These were the first types of conversations that probably we all had with our engineering groups and our product groups to really try to understand data and where it's going. And that was the same time, as I was about to leave, the California laws came into being. And then I went to even financial, getting involved with financial privacy and what's happening there. And now I'm at Peloton and trying to help Peloton, kind of build their privacy program to be the best it can be. And so that's the path I've taken, and that's why I'm here.
I think the start from an actor to now trying to connect all these different privacy laws is a really fascinating connection.
I'm curious, when you were pursuing your acting, and sounds like you were in a newsroom, were there any kind of things that you were involved in or whatnot? I'd be interested. How do you think that skill set of acting comes in handy for your career now? Because I find myself, Jody's done it as well. We've been on shows, and sometimes people fire questions at you that you're not ready for, and you kind of have to react. So I'm curious as to how this background might help you in this area, because on the top level, they look like they're so different.
Yeah, they are. But one of the big things that I have, taken with me is, listening, a listening skill. As an actor, you have to listen to your other actors. You can't just react. And the same thing in the privacy world. All these regulations are being kind of thrown at you. Let's not react. Let's go talk to our teams. Let's talk to the product team, marketing team, whoever, and let's listen to how they're doing things and really understand the product, the data, everything like that before you actually then start to help and work with them on implementing things. So listening is primarily key to what I've taken from my acting, world into now, as well as, training is important for all teams. And so being able to get in front of teams and really clearly explain why you're doing what you're doing is extreme utmost importance, and a little bit of the acting skill comes into handy there.
Well, speaking of teams, I've been saying a lot recently that privacy is a team sport because it really needs support from all the different functional areas. How do you bridge privacy needs across different internal groups?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is number one is the communication and listening, right? You have to do that kind of like that listening tour, right? Whether you're in a big company or a small company or a startup, whatever it is, you have to understand what the company is doing, understand what they're building towards, and listen to them and really try to dive in with them as kind of hey, we're working on this together, right? And that's for them to understand that compliance is not only about what you do, it should be about what they do, and thinking about it, because it all comes back to make the company better. I think the other thing is I mentioned training. It's really important to get out there, right? And to start like doing lunch and learns or getting in front of the leadership team and really educating them on not only the laws and the regulations, but processes that need to be in place or what you need to do in order to be compliant. I think the other thing is no matter what you do, it's not to upset the apple cart, right? If you come into a company that is new or that doesn't have anything in place, or you come into a company that is has things in place, see during that listening tour, see what they're using, see how they're using it, see if you can implement some of the things and gaps that you're finding into a process that they already have. Because there is one thing that all product engineering marketing people hate is like to have to do another process, right? I'm already doing the security process. Why do I have to do this privacy thing? Right. So try to figure out if there's things that you could piggyback off of or kind of work with what they're already doing in order to make sure it's compliant. And the last thing is to find those people within the organization that could help you, right? And those are, we always talk about privacy champions, right? But it's really connecting with those people, and that could be your security team and your compliance team, or hopefully maybe it's even people in the product engineering or marketing teams, right? Where you are kind of talking to them on a weekly basis, telling them, hey, I need your help, right? You're in it, you're on the ground, you see something, you say something, come to me, let's talk about it. It's the relationship building really that's tried and true with kind of bringing those everyone together and making sure that they understand privacy.
Jordan, I love how you started with the roadshow idea and action lunch and learns and really getting to know and talk to people, because what we're trying to do is connect people to a mission, and everyone in the organization has their mission and their role. And you're essentially trying to help them understand why they also have to pay attention to you. And it can't just be here's this written email or here's this written policy, go read it, now follow it. Instead, it's that connection. It's listening to what their questions are or their concerns. Using what we find to be really successful is using scenarios in their department. If you're talking to the HR team, then talk about hiring people and use those stories and examples. If you're talking to the marketing team, what's important to them, to really be able to help them understand why this is good for everybody.
Yeah, I have to tell you that real life examples are what the teams need. They don't understand the policy. They'll read the process, but giving them, of how to do it, but also major fails, right? Like looking outside, going, listen, here's what could happen, right? And it gives them some sense of, oh, I get it. I get why you're doing this. So yeah,
it really does.
So, Jordan, kind of building on this, I'm just curious in a follow-up. Again, full disclosure, Jody and I both use the Peloton. For example, I clipped in this morning, and one of the things I like about it now is I'm trying to build up my VO2 max so that I can sustain higher level workouts. And so you can have my Apple Watch connect to the Peloton, and now you've got my heart rate, you've got my zones, and obviously this stuff really isn't regulated under HIPAA, but taking that kind of an example to your point of how you educate some of these departments, does it always occur to them that that kind of information is really sensitive? And if they're not careful with disclosing and how it's collected and what's done with it, you really could get people really angry.
Yeah, and especially now with the FTC coming out with some new things about beyond, you're not talking about HIPAA, but other types of things. And it is really important to, in those lunch and learns and every day with the teams as they're building these connections, for them to understand, what is personal information. That was a big thing. When I started, we had several different definitions, right? Because each team was looking at it differently. Of course, if you look at some state laws, depending on the division of the state, some of those are different as well. But, we had to come together so they understood what is personal information, what is sensitive information, what is PII underneath it, all those things. And so it's a constant conversation. We have, just to give some insight, every week, every other week, we have a meeting with the top leadership of the product teams, right? And of the to discuss what are they working on? What are the issues that we see? So then if there's something that comes up there and bubbles up there, then we could bring it to the teams and say, okay, let's have a separate meeting with all of our teams to talk about this new implementation, this new thing you're talking about, right? And so those are the types of things that we do to communicate so they understand, right? Those things are really important. And especially as the laws and rules are changing daily, it seems like sometimes it's even more important, right? To get out there and to do those, like you said, lunch and learns that we're doing, or even getting up in front of the whole company and explaining what's going on.
Well, building on that approach that you've taken, we have a lot of privacy pros listening, or general counsels and other people who might have been anointed owning privacy. What might be 3 tips that you could share about how to build a privacy program successfully?
Sure. Yeah. I think my 3 tips are more of the 3 phases of what you need to do, thinking about it, in building a program. And the first one, which we've kind of talked about a little bit, is alignment, right? Alignment across internally first, right? Understanding the data that we're using and how we're using it, talking to the teams about it, talking to teams about the products, looking at about transparency, right? How are we dealing with our privacy policy? How are we dealing with all the little things that people, connect to? Controls, all of those types of things that are in place. Let's look at those together. The other thing is getting with your C-suite, understanding what your C-suite has to say. And is there a risk appetite? Have we looked at a risk appetite? What is our risk? Right? Those are all things we have to get aligned on internally from a privacy perspective. But then think externally too, right? You have to think about your stakeholders like your shareholders, your board members, your customers. What do they think about you, right? How do they think about privacy when they think of your company? And so understanding all those things will help you get alignment of where you're going and where you need to go, as a privacy program. The second phase or tip is accountability, is making sure, like during those lunch and learns, making sure people understand, hey, hi, I'm Jordan. I'm the privacy guy. I'm accountable for this, right? I'm accountable to make sure everything is happening in an appropriate, compliant way. But then also making sure there's some accountability within each one of those teams. We talked about those privacy champions and what they should do. Everyone talks about them, but they should have some accountability into, hey, I hear something happening. I want to talk about it with Jordan or with the privacy team. That is really important, in building a program, so they understand that and then they work with you. And the last thing is adaptability with a program, right? So it's really important, whatever you build from a privacy program, that it has to be adaptable. Why? I mean, you look at it every day, we have changing laws, changing rules across the world. What you do today may not be compliant tomorrow based upon what's happening, right? And so you have to look at, if I'm implementing something today and telling the marketing team, let's implement this today, think about the future and think about, can we adapt that? Is this really like now sometimes you can't, and it is what it is. But you have to think about that, because what is a product today won't be a product tomorrow. What is a control today won't be a control tomorrow. So you have to think about that when you're developing and working with your teams, on the adaptability, and also your program as a whole, right? Being able to move and change as things come is really important. And so, if you're someone who doesn't like to adapt, probably not a good time to be in the privacy world because of everything happening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What I liked about what you shared is that adaptability and the champions, it goes to the whole idea of you're really building a program. It's not one and done. It's
No.
just continuing to evolve all the different steps and components of a program. People, I sometimes feel like, right there's this one piece, and then I check the box. I did that data inventory. I did that policy. Woo! But we have new laws. We have new interpretations. We have new products. Those champions can help bring the newness in the business to you. And the program needs to be flexible to take that, look at where it is today, and make sure it has whatever requirements are going forward.
Yeah, nothing is set in stone now. I mean, it really isn't, and you just have to be able to move and adapt.
I like it.
So, kind of continuing our global theme, how do you set up your team to manage privacy globally, since Peloton is a global company?
Some
We
of my
are
favorite instructors are based in the UK as well. Just gonna share.
Really?
Yes.
You're such a fan.
That is what it does so well. Anyone's interested, you can send me a message and I will tell you my favorite instructors.
What about your favorite Peloton Lululemon gear?
No, we could just focus on the
Okay,
instructor part.
fair enough.
um, we do have good gear. Anyway,
You do have good gear now. That's true. Brilliant partnership with Lululemon.
um, so how do I manage a team globally? I think number one, when I came in, I think that we were a little disjointed, and it's really important in my world to have some sort of, and everyone does this differently. In my world, to have a centralized understanding of privacy, right? And where you're going. Why? Because we need to have a foundation. We need to have a foundation in where we're going. I talked about that risk appetite. That could be different, right? In different parts of the world, in different states, in different areas. But as a company as a whole, you have a risk appetite and understanding. And so you have to build upon that and think about that globally and centralize that. So, that's one of the things I did, is trying to understand globally how we can look at things in a manner that is, hey, are these things that we could do across the globe? Are these things that we might just do in the United States, or we, should just do in the UK or wherever? So we're always thinking about that. I think it's also important, when you talk about a team. Now, it's not essential, but it's really helpful to have a team, a member in the countries that you're in, right? Or at least in Europe and in Australia or wherever you are. And that's, number one, you're dealing with data subjects, you're dealing with requests. It's good to have it in real time. It's good to have the back and forth and connection. It's more personalized then. It's also good because then they're dealing with the teams that are on the ground there, right? And it's really important to be part of those product team meetings that are in the international world, or the marketing team. And so my team is part of those and part of that. So then they could come back during our weekly meetings and privacy meetings to talk about, hey, what are they doing and thinking about globally from a global perspective? Because listen, marketing is different globally than it is in the United States, right? So those are areas where we have to figure out what we're doing, in Europe probably is going to be a little different than what we're doing in the United States. And so we have to kind of think, okay, from a privacy perspective, maybe that's an area where we're different, right? And so how do we talk about that with the international team, with the US team, and how do we bring together to go, this is why we're doing it over there differently? But it's bringing those teams together on a weekly basis so we understand and we talk to them. And truthfully, it's really important also, and I know this with a team, is to have really, if you don't have a team on the ground, is have really good outside counsel. Whether that be lawyers or someone else, to help you, because when you're on the ground in that specific country, you really find out about what's going on. We're listening to it from in the US, but we don't know how it's being sometimes applied or what's happening, right? We just started having conversations about the Data Act, right? That's coming in, not the EUAI Act, which is a whole nother podcast, but the Data Act. And so, and how that may apply to us, how we're going to deal with that, because that's European. And do we need, what about the US, and how do we, we have to bring the product teams in. So those are the types of things in conversations that if you have someone on the ground, whether it's a person or outside, they will bring those to you and say, hey, people are talking about this. We need to bring this forward. That's really, hopefully that answers your question, how I manage what's going on.
Well, and privacy is, as we just talked about, really challenging. And when you have all these different teams and jurisdictions that you have to manage through, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that the teams are facing right now? And what is working well for you? Maybe in addition to having that communication, what might be some of the other steps you've taken to successfully move the company through those privacy challenges?
I mean, there are challenges, really?
I know.
Easy.
Challenge number one, figure out which law applies today.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, there are a myriad of laws now, right? And we are, every day thinking about them, especially from the aspect of what we do, right? And you talk about, sensitive information. What do we have any sensitive information? Are we looking at Washington State, which is a new state with privacy laws? It's really difficult, and a lot of these also make it sometimes more difficult for the consumer, right, to understand what's happening. So how do we comply while making it easier for others to understand? One of the things we do is we think about the business itself first, right? If we have one state that's opt-in for everything, and another state that's different in this, how do we look at that, right? Do we want to do opt-in for every state? Probably not. I don't know. It depends on your situation, because you got to think about your customers. You have to think about things that might happen there. So it could be your company plan to do that, to just let's take the most strict and let's go it across. But what we do is look at it as a state by state. Some people do it differently, and see if we can develop something for a state by state. I shouldn't say state by state, but groupings by groupings, because some of them are all the same. And try to deal with it in that way. And so we talk to our product and engineering teams of, hey, what can we do? Is this making it more difficult for you? Is it easier to do everything the same? But then what's going to happen on the business end, right? So these are all conversations that not only happening with product and engineering, you're happening with your sales and business teams. You're talking to your brand teams about everything, to understand how you can mold and move forward. I think if I could talk about one of the challenges that we've dealt with, recently is, and this is something that probably a lot of people have to deal with, is we get a lot of emails to our privacy email address, and some of these were, some of them deal with privacy, some of them don't, some of them half do, half don't, and I had team members who were spending hours answering these, right? And it's good. We should answer them. We want to answer them. We're a member first company. But number one, I didn't think privacy was the right place for people to answer these member support questions. So what did I do? I went, I talked about finding those champions, finding those people in your company. I went to our member support. I said, hey, I need your help. Let's train some member support people up with privacy. Let's get a higher level of that member support, and let's work with them and have them help us with these emails. So that was one way, and they know they now know the law probably better than anyone else. They have, ways to answer these people. They know when to escalate up to us. It is real, and it took hours of our day away to do other things. And so that's one, you talk about, working with other teams. It's one way to think about things in a better way. And that's why having those relationships is really important, and a challenge that I think many people are having with all these, inbounds that are coming in, and how to deal with them.
So, Jordan, I kind of want to ask a follow-up question to this, and maybe I'm lobbing in an unexpected question, Jody, you too, is you have this inbox that's getting overwhelmed, and you're like, okay, I'm going to train up people because they'll get the benefit of this knowledge. And I'm just curious, because you mentioned the magic 2 letters before of AI, and another solution I've seen other companies do is, okay, let's use AI to start responding to that. And if you had some kind of combination of AI, but had human intervention with your team behind it, I don't know, is that something that would be considered? Or I guess, do you look at the risk profile and say, hey, Justin, I think you're getting a little too far out of your skis here. We're not quite there yet, but that is an area where AI, if deployed properly with proper human oversight, could be helpful.
Yeah. And I want to be clear here. We still see on the privacy team every email. We have the access to every email that comes in. So even though our member support is answering and helping us, we still look it over. We just don't have time. AI is one of those areas that, like every other company, if you say you're not looking into it, like, people are like, yeah, right. I mean, it is something that every company is looking into. And from a member support area, of course we would look into how we would do that, but we would do it in a transparent way. We'd make sure people understand that this is an AI. We would, those are the types of things we would think about, but it is not something currently that, that I know of, that we're investigating. But AI is one of those things that every company is looking at, how to do things better. So, I'm not going to sit here and say we're not looking at how to do things better at our company and not pushing things in a better, more transparent way with AI. But it's kind of we're kind of taking it as it comes and seeing what could help us, and does it really help our members? And if it does, then we're going to let them know.
I think that makes sense. Well, given all the knowledge you have about privacy and security, what would be your best personal privacy or security tip you would offer all your non-privacy friends when they ask you?
So I guess this is, we've had this kind of through line of communication, right? And how to communicate effectively with people. And one of the big things that I do in my company is when I do these lunch and learns is it's really hard because of all these laws to get the point across about privacy and all, how do we be compliant and how do we do these things? And so I tell them, listen, I'm going to give you privacy 101. I'm going to do it in 3 words and it will help you help me. And the idea is just don't be creepy, right? And so if you follow that and you follow your gut when you're creating marketing, when you're creating brand, your products or whatever it is, if you get that gut feeling, come talk to me, come talk to my team, right? It's really easy. And I know we all have our different understandings of what creepy is, but really everyone understands. There's actually there's an article, it was written in 2013 on this, I think it's the how to respond to the privacy crisis or something like that. And I wish I remembered who wrote it. I think it was at the Cato Institute, where they used a formula for the privacy. If you really like formulas, like, your emotion, how you're emotionally related, affected by the personal use of a product or those things. But really it gets down to, if it's creepy, if you feel it, talk to me, talk to my team, reach out, because that's the start of it. That's the start of the communication. And that's what's helping. And everyone understands that, right? And now I walk through the halls and people are like, don't be creepy. And listen, they remember it. They remember it. And it's easy.
They really do, because I used the exact same thing when I built the privacy program at Cox Automotive. I had the exact same thing. No joke. I would say, you can't cross the very official word here, creepy. There's a line, and that's where we don't want to cross. So I absolutely love that. Anyone listening thinking it doesn't work, it absolutely does.
Yeah. I'm thinking the slide now needs to be, or the bumper sticker, company data collection. Don't be creepy.
There's your next t-shirt.
I think that could be it. This is awesome. Thank you, Jordan. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's short and very succinct.
It gets the point across and everyone understands it.
There you go. Simple is better.
Because she doesn't like my other one in privacy. Just say no to data collection.
Because not everyone understands that.
This one, with what Jordan said, don't be. That's awesome.
All right, that's your new learning fact for the day.
I'm going to have to use that one. I will attribute it to you. So I give kudos where they are due.
Well, wait, hold on. Jody said she used it too. So
but you said it first.
I don't count.
Okay.
I'm just me. I mean, what do I know?
There you have it. So Jordan, when you aren't creating really cool taglines and managing a global privacy program for a well-known international brand, what do you like to do for fun? Maybe some acting.
Yeah, I don't act right now anymore. I do have a kids, and so it's mostly coaching soccer, and the other week it was nice weather here, so I actually took the golf clubs out, and my son and I went and to the range and did some of that. I love photography, so I do some photography. But and if I said, I get on my bike and I ride. That's for fun too. I'm with every single instructor.
Well, Jordan,
who's Jordan's favorite instructor?
I don't know. He's not going to tell us.
To be
But if you want to know who my favorite instructor is, you can absolutely send me a message and I will tell you. I have a short list. I think every instructor has a unique personality, and there's different music and there's different personalities and there's different types of rides and styles. And I think that's actually what makes it so successful, is it's able to appeal to people who have varied interests. Honestly, the rides you take, I would never take, because those aren't the ones I want. You have your music, I have my music. Everyone's happy.
Music has nothing to do with it for me.
For me, it's all about the music. So see,
all right, Jordan, you're in the crosshairs. Jordan, let's focus on our guests.
We are so grateful that you came here today to talk about rides and music and also global privacy programs. If people would like to learn more, where should they go?
So if they always could reach out on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm although I'm privacy, I am public. You could reach out there. Privacy at Peloton, where, you could always reach out to me there. I would, like I said, we do look at every single email. So, you could reach out to me there as well.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a jam-packed episode full of all kinds of good nuggets. So thanks you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.